I've been spending a lot of time just looking at YouTube and looking at people talking about YouTube, and oh, there's all kind of people right now. It seems like maybe they've always been there, but maybe I just didn't see them before because everybody was talking about politics. Everybody's out there telling you how to do YouTube, and yeah, it's interesting. Give me something to think about, but I don't want to get too much into that. I don't know if I told you or not, but I ordered a can of that Boston Whaler blue paint, and I'm going to paint this car. And there's a lot of things going on here, like this is all chipping off. You see right here where that paint's coming off, and there's some paint chips. Well, here's one right here, big paint chip right there where the paint's coming off. And, this is not a perfect car, but it would look better with some paint on it. I don't think Josh would be offended if I did sand off this old Rust-Oleum paint, especially where it's chipping off like that. There's some here chipping off. To paint it, so I like that Boston Whaler blue color, so I'm thinking I might, after I get through doing other stuff, just start sanding on this over time. And, you know, do a few little things like this upholstery back here. You see how that's peeled off here and over there? And that's just a piece of cloth that's been on there since this car was made, and it's given up the ghost. But there's a piece of cardboard there. You take that apart and you get that cardboard out, and you can put a new piece of material on that to make that look easy. That's a pretty easy fix. So, yeah, there's a lot of things I can do. Okay, so I've cut the camera off. It's one of those days where I can spend all day walking around talking about what I'm gonna do, but I'll get a few things done here. Love y'all, appreciate you. So, I've been playing with it a little. I don't have any vacuum coming out of the carburetor. And I guess I could check to see if I'm actually getting any vacuum through this hose. This is not much fun, but this is how you do that. You take this hose off. There's no vacuum coming out of that, but you can take this hose off, stick this in here. But y'all don't have this on electronic ignition. And you suck on this, and if it speeds up, it didn't. If the engine speeded up when I did that, that would mean that this thing is working. What this thing does is vacuum from here pulls this thing, which rotates the plate that the points sit on. That increases your vacuum. So I've got no vacuum, and I've got no vacuum operated thing here, which would both make the point for throwing the electronic ignition distributor in there, which I could do. One thing I do notice is my gas thing is empty now. A while ago it was kind of full. I should mention, after I cranked it and ran it a while ago, it was hot, and I let it cool off and checked the water in the radiator, and the water in the radiator was low. It's not hot now. And I think, well, what happens when you first crank an engine that's been sitting around and it's dry, the thermostat will be closed. So if you add water and fill the radiator up, well, once the thermostat opens, it lets the water that's in the radiator go into the engine, but that often isn't enough water to cool it. So what had happened, pretty sure here, was that after I ran it a little bit and got it warmed up, and it opened the thermostat, and then it circulated the water, but there wasn't enough water to actually cool the engine. So what I did was top the radiator off, and now she appears to be running cool. No problem. She hadn't even gotten up to a temperature high enough to open the thermostat yet. So I have been messing with the timing. This is Wayland Wire's timing light. And I can't hardly see, well, I can see, and if you look right along the top of that timing light, you may see a little white line. Well, that little white line is a goodly bit above well, it's right at the top of the little pad there. I don't know how else to describe it, but there's a little plate there, and the plate will have a mark on it that'll say 0. Well, 0 will be top dead center, and then usually you time it a few degrees before 0, which it is, but it's probably a few more degrees before 0 than I would want. However, you have to keep in mind that what normally happens, well, not having vacuum and not having that advance, normally you unplug that line and that retards the vacuum. I don't even know how to explain this, but let's just say it's running pretty good now. Let's just, now you hear that valve rattle? That's not something you want to hear. So let's do this. Let's retard it by ear. Let's time it by ear. So I'm going to move it so it speeds up a little. Go the other way. Oops. That was the wrong way. I'm going to have to play with that timing a little bit. Do that. But one of the things I often do when I feel like it's in a pretty good place, when I'm timing it by ear, is I'll cut it off and crank it. If it's too advanced, it will drag. When I go to crank it, it'll go rup, rup. So let's cut it off. Now you hear that? That's telling me the timing's off. But see, it's running. There's a word for that. I think they call that dieseling. But what it's doing, it's running when you cut the switch off, which basically means the timing. Valve rattle there too. I'm thinking that's pretty close to right there. But I will play with it some more. I've been watching the temperature. I've seen it go up and down, which tells me the thermostat is opening and closing, and it's cooling the engine. There is not a lot of water in my overflow tube here. So see that bulb, that bulb on that fuel filter. A little tiny bit of fuel way down the bottom of it. So this will be a process, but in a way it's kind of a fun process. I don't mind playing around with something like this. In fact, I was thinking the other day, what would I do if I didn't have this? Because I kind of like having something I can mess around with. And you know, I had plans, and I really love the look of that little Corvette valve cover sitting down in that car. Sweet little car, I think. I guess I'm gonna take it for a drive here in a little bit. I'm pretty sure this is way too tall, and I think if I put a hood on there and closed it, it would poke a hole in the hood. So I'm gonna need to trim that off, which I can do. Take a little grinder and whoosh that off there. Just make sure I don't get any shavings down in the carburetor, which that shouldn't happen as long as I've got this on there. I should be good with that. Yep. It'll be interesting to take her out and drive her, see how she does. Okay, let me think about what I want to do next. There's plenty to do here.